Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Spiritist Society of Baltimore's virtual meeting. And happy May. Today is May 1st. We're so excited. We have our May calendar out, it's on our website. Don't forget to take a look at it and check out all of our activities and all of our speakers this month. And we do have a special speaker this month. So check it out and join us for any of our meetings. So glad to have you. So as usual, before we invite our speaker for this evening, we always read a small, short passage from the book Happy Life. So we're just going to open one short message and do a brief reading. Then we'll do our opening prayer, and then we'll invite our speaker for this evening. So this is on page 90 of the book Happy Life by the spirit Joanna de Angelis, psychographed by the Brazilian Spiritist medium DIVALDO FRANCO. Page 90. You could do more for humanity if you wanted to. Reach out to the fallen. Say a kind word to someone. Offer a fraternal smile to the lonely. Give a flower to a friend. Make a sad person smile. Envelop the downtrodden in tenderness. Coins of love are worth more than banknotes if offered from the heart and at the right time. No one turns away a friend or scorns a kind gesture. Strive for the honor of being one of the builders of a better world and a happier society. Beautiful message by Joanna. So join me and I welcome you in this moment of prayer where we connect with our higher power. And if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. And closing our eyes just helps us in this meditative moment. So let's take this moment. I want you to relax your shoulder, relax your muscles. Take a deep breath in and out. And let us be present here in this moment. Let us imagine our heart opening, our mind to receive the blessings of this evening. We ask our Father, Mother God, our Master Jesus, our Spirit guides, to bless our speaker this evening and the message that will be shared. May it touch our hearts, bring us solace. And we pray for all those who are suffering in this world. May our lofty vibrations be able to reach those who need it the most. And with Jesus in our hearts and in our minds, ready to learn, emptying our cup, ready to receive. May you bless this meeting this evening, and so be it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Today we have no one other than Daniel Santos today talking about a topic we have discussed before, but it is so good to be revisiting it again. Without charity, there's no salvation. So please, Daniel.
Thank you, Kirsten. It's always good to be here and share some of our reflection of this teaching of Spiritism. And today we chose to reflect a little bit upon this title, Without Charity, There is No Salvation. But you may ask, Daniel, why you chose this title, Without Charity, There is No Salvation? Well, sometimes we kind of mistaking the word charity. Sometimes we think that charity is giving things, is even like go and help an institution. But the question is this a real charity as the great mind has defined what charity means? So today we wanted to reflect a little bit upon this topic of charity. And I hope by the end of our presentation today, we have a better understanding of the word charity. The other thing that we will discuss is the word salvation. This is something that we all wanted to achieve, right? We all wanted to be saved. And the question is, saved from what? Of course, from our suffering. Especially like if we go through pain, we wanted to be saved from that experience, that negative experience. And we're gonna take a look a little bit on what Joanna de Angelis, the spirit Joanna de Angelis, the spirit's guide of the Brazilian Spiritist medium, DIVALDO Franco, has brought to us about, how to achieve the salvation. And of course, we're gonna touch in the teachings by Jesus and also by the gospel according to Spiritism, and how we better understand what charity is and how to take advantage of the teaching of the Spiritists, the Spirit's guide, and put this in practice. So I would like to start by, if I can move my slide here, I think I can, by go to the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 15. And Kardec chose to name the chapter "Without Charity, There Is No Salvation." And why he decided to give the title of this chapter? We know that the Gospel according to Spiritism is an expansion of the third part of the Spirit's book, when is the third part of the Spirit's book talks about the moral laws. And there we have a list of 10 moral laws that Kardec has put together in order for us to understand what, following those moral laws, we will be in compliance with God's law, the natural law. So the word "without," and there is a footnote in the chapter, means that in that time, the motto, the banner was "Without church, there is no salvation." So, which means that if you don't belong to that organization, or if you are not related to the church in that time, you're not going to be saved. That would be the main banner that was happening in the 19th century. And I believe until nowadays, we cannot speak for other denomination if they still use that banner. But we know that this, without this terminology, means that if you don't belong to the church, is related to, as they mention here, the term "without" implies more of a sense of local rather than possession. So it's more like you need to belong. Doesn't mean if you are doing charity or if you help other, but if you don't, if you do this but don't belong, so you may not be saved. So that was pretty big deal, and that somehow bring a high degree of fear to people in that time. So if you don't follow that denomination, still nowadays we can see that. Even in Spiritism, sometimes we don't use the church, but we may find people say, if you don't go to the Spirit Center, if you don't, you're gonna go to the umbral. So we kind of change a little bit, but some people still use those kind of banner to impose some kind of fear. So, but the question here is, um, do we really understand the word charity? And sometimes this word charity is mixed with the word love, right? And we're gonna see later in our presentation that even through many translations in the Bible, they change the word charity and put love, and some translation has love instead of charity. So our reflection here today is really go deep on this word charity that we learn in, um, from from this chapter, but also we're gonna bring what Joanna de Angelis, the Spiritist Joanna de Angelis, has taught us through the psychological um, um, books that she has delivered through the medium DIVALDO Franco. So, what means charity? What is the definition of the word charity? You know, we need to clarify this at the first place, so we can start to reflect and analyze if we are or not a charitable person, right? So the first and most famous definition was gave by Paul when Paul says to the Corinthians, love, charity is loving action toward others. And we can expand that others mean, you know, fellow beings, but also toward nature, toward ourselves, you know. So means the love in action. So here we can see that love is the means to do charity. It's not the same. So charity is love in action, right? Further, we see in the first letter, in the first Corinthians chapter 13, Paul, in the letter, the beautiful letter that we see this text be reading over and over, especially in this month of May that we have a lot of wedding, you know, and this is a preferable text that they use because they replace the word love or charity by love. And Paul says to the Corinthians, if many other things, if I were to distribute my belongings to feed the poor and delivered my body to be burned, if I did not have charity, none of this would be of any use to me. Even, and then he continued, even if I were to speak the language of all angels themselves, if I were to have the gift of prophecy and grasped all mysteries, if I had all the faith possible to the point of moving mountains, but did not have charity, I would be nothing. And then he continued, charity is patient, it is kind and benevolent. Charity is not envious. It is not harsh or hurried. It is not full of pride, very important. And then he finalized the text by saying, now these three virtues remain, faith, hope, and charity, but among them the most excellent is charity. Very profound. And one of the things that we can see in this small sentence, paragraph that we put here, of course, the text is much longer, is that Paul put charity above faith, right? And even he said, you know, if we have faith possible to the point of move mountain, but did not have charity. So he's telling us here that even if you have all the faith that you preach, you know, but if you don't have charity, nothing, you'll be nothing. In another word, you're not going to be saved, right? So here is the thing very interesting, because our religion organization, including, of course, you know, Spiritism as well, one of the main things that is the driving force is to help one another, right? Is to volunteer. Um, uh, but we are seeing here what Paul is saying, that, okay, you can volunteer like many times your whole life. Also, he mentioned about you can speak several languages, which means that you can have all the knowledge, you can have your PhDs in all area, but at the end of the day, if you don't have charity, you gain nothing. What are you talking about, Paul? I devote my life, help others. So, but then this is not charity. No, according to Paul, this is not charity. And then we're going to understand later with Jesus, what is the definition of charity. Okay, sometimes we make a mistake, like, for example, we give money to a nonprofit organization, we give our time, we volunteer, and sometimes we have some gain. At the moment we have some gain return, if it is not material gain, or sometimes we give money, for example, this is philanthropy. This is philanthropy. It's not charity. Philanthropy is like when we give something material and we have some kind of return, like some recognition, or we can deduct that material thing in our tax return, for example. It's very common here in the US, and I believe in the majority of our planet. So that's not charity by definition. Okay, we may call charity, we can speculate that would be a very small form of charity, but it's not the fully mean of charity as defined by Paul. Let us move on. Let us see what Joanna de Angelis says. Joanna de Angelis, one of the masters psychographed by DIVALDO FRANCO, she mentioned that keep in mind that charity in your actions must be the light that overcomes the shadows, or the shadow. What is shadow? What is she talking about? Well, for those that study psychology, that has reading Joanna de Angelis, the books that has read Carl Gustav Jung, we're gonna learn about the archetypes, right? The archetype is pretty much ingredient that make the composition of our psyche, our mind, our conscience, and we know that we have the conscious, the unconscious. So all this terminology to define the mind of the spirit, the immortal spirit. So in these archetypes, they have different names. They have the shadow, that which means is this collection of behavior, action, and vices that we accumulate through many lifetimes that define us nowadays. So what we are nowadays, our behavior, the way we think, the way we act, is product of, the archetypes that we call shadow. But also we have the other part, the ego, for example. And we have the self, our true self, the spirit, the immortal spirit, that one day we want to become the true self, which means we're going to become a pure spirit, where we're going to conquer all the moral virtues. Far away from now, okay? For now, let us just, accept the level that we are with our flaws, but also some virtue that we have already acquired throughout this many lifetime that we have been lived as a immortal spirit, right? So let us move on. So the other thing that we learn about charity is in the chapter 7 of the book. The spirit, Francois Xavier, the end of his communication, he mentioned about when charity becomes the rule of conduct for humans, they will conform their word and action to this maxim. Do not do unto others what would you not want them to do unto you. Then all causes of distensions will disappear, and with them the causes of duels and wars, which are actually those between people. So beautiful, right? So he's talking here about what? About the golden rule that we have learned, and we mentioned this many times. The golden rule is something that has been, been saying since the ancient Greek, and Jesus as well mentioned about this. So we need to think about, we need to put ourselves in the other person's shoes or place, and if we are crossing our mind to do something, let us first ask ourselves, would you also like to have that action be done to you? So that is a good reflection for us. And another way that the spirits, the noble spirits, bring to us, that if one day when charity becomes the rules of conduct for humans, and this rule of conduct is this golden rules that we have been learning, and also was mentioned by Jesus. So before we do anything, and we know that first go through our mind, right? Go through our thought. And then we think about, and then we act. So it's always good to make this reflection before we act. And I know that sometimes is a battle inside of us, right? Because we find ourselves in the middle of should I do, should I not? Should I go and say this or that, or should I just silence? Sometimes when we don't know what's the best way to act, silence would be the best approach. And we learn this, especially with Joanna de Angelis. In the book Happy Life, she mentioned about, that sometimes when we don't know, when we are in doubt, silence will bring the best answer. Because in silence, we be able to reflect more, a little bit about the situation. And with that, we will take the better action. So then Joanna comes again, and we're going to bring a lot of Joanna de Angelis to help us to understand as well about the true meaning of charity. And she says, charity is not just a theological virtue. Charity is not just a religious guideline. Charity is not a conditioning of faith. Charity is purely and simply a norm pattern of behavior. So up to now, nobody is saying here that charity is giving things. Up to now, everything is in the field of the mind, is in the field of behavior, is in the field of feelings, right? So I think it's very prudent for us, when we say us, include myself and everybody that's listening here, to stop and reflect if we are really a true charitable individual. Take straight for the definition of charity by many of those great minds in humanity, those that are in the spiritual plane, but also we have some incarnated ones that has been showing this in their life as well, right? So, and one of the things that we learn, and the reason that we say that we include this, our action, as being a charitable action, is because the level that we are in the planet, and we learn in Spiritism that the planet Earth right now is a planet of trial and atonement, or expiation, is a planet where evil still prevail. When we say evil here, we are saying that it's not that God creates evil is a component of the creation. Evil is not a component of the creation because God is perfect, is just, is love. He or she or it never would create evil. Everything that is great is good. So the evil here is in the sense of lack of good and positive choice, I would say. Okay, so when someone commit evil, is because that person is not behaving according to God's law. They are deviating from the natural law, from moral law. So the divine laws, then he is committing evil. It is a terminology that's accepted because our language is not yet able to really define those components, right? So, and that's okay. It is okay. So it's okay to say that evil still prevail. But let's define evil here by the sense of those that's not according, those action choice that's not according with God's law, right? So one of the things that we can reflect on the planet, our house, the planet that we are living right now, is that compared to other planets, is that in our planet, the spirit of doing good always is an exception. That not the spirit, like, which means that, do good always is an exception. It's not a rule yet, okay? So the sentiment of goodness is not spontaneous everywhere. And we can see that, right? For example, if you turn the local news of your city, we pretty much is going to see more news that is not so positive, And sometimes what we have seen is that the last, minutes of that, segment, they put something positive, and they try to end those news with a positive action. But we know that in an average, we are still seeing goodness happen, like, not all the time, right? And this, if the society is doing this, if we look at this outside, is because the individual that is a unit of that society is doing too, right? So if we get the average. So, and that's why the planet that we live, and we learned is that we are all inhabited by spirit indebted with the laws of cause and effect. Well, Daniel, I don't know what I did. I have my life. I don't do any evil, in the sense I try to do everything by the book. But in this lifetime, we don't know how was previous lifetime. And thanks God, we don't know. Thank you for the blessings to forget past lives. Because if today a relationship with someone in our workplace or in our family is a little bit sour, is a little bit, spoiled, or a little bit difficult, imagine how it was in the past. So we don't want it to go there. Let's the past in the past. Let's concentrate here right now and do the best that we can to move on. But what is Joanna's propose for us to understand more about this charity that we are discussing here, that will save us? She proposed what we call the moral transformation. Daniel, the moral transformation, what is this? We're going to see it. Through this moral transformation, as she also mentioned, the self-discovery, and we have learned in the Spirit's book about the best way to draw us against the evil would be know thyself. All this word that we use, we say, but the question is, are we putting this in practice to help us to this goal that is the moral transformation? The moral transformation doesn't happen overnight. We are part of nature, and nature doesn't change overnight. It's gradual, okay? So by this moral transformation that will eventually know ourselves and make this self-discovery until we reach the level of the conscious being that Joanna de Angelis brings to us, is that where the self, is acting 100%. Is when our conscience is in the present 100%. We are still far away from there. When our unconscious is not dictating more our life, we have cleaned all the basement. As we learn in the book, in The Great Word by the Spirit André Alois, chapter 3, he mentioned about the mental institution or the mental house, the mental institution, and he compared our brain with this castle, with the three levels of this institution, where, like, the basement is, part where we is locate our unconscious, our everything that is related to our impulses, to our vices. And then we have the second floor, where we is our current life, is everything that we are constructing, that we are in the present. And then the third floor, that is related as our frontal lobe, as the you know the one that is connect with this connection with the divine, the high aspiration, and also the area of all the virtue, like compassion and humility, our spirituality, the work of our spirituality. So, as in the brain, he mentioned about the the primitive brain, and then the um, neocortex, and then the prefrontal area of the brain as the place in the physical plane that hold or host these three area of our psychic, our mind. But we're gonna leave this for another presentation. So we just wanted to bring here that the idea for us to become a pure spirit one day, from many reincarnations from now on, would be to clean this basement, would be to transform all the negative experience that we have acquired throughout many reincarnations, working our vices, and transform this in virtues. And ultimately, and then we will achieve this level of be fully present all the time, where our relationships from the past, our enemies, our traumas, always gonna be resolved at someday. That is the goal, okay? So let us go back to what Joanna de Angelis brings. In this book, Self-Discovery, An Inner Search, a book that was translated by us here in the Spiritist Society of Baltimore, led by Vanessa Celoni. In the first chapter of this book, Joanna mentioned something very interesting that will help us to connect with this idea of, understand charity as the means for salvation. She says, the experience of self-discovery allows the individual to identify his or her limits and dependencies, his true or false aspirations, ego tricks, and impostures of illusions. I'll let you read so you can see how poetic, how deep Joanna's bring this idea of self-discovery, So the question sometimes is, how will you achieve this self-discovery, Daniel? Well, we're going to see it. But one of the things that this is going to help us, that sometimes we think that we are a terrible person, but we are not. Because if our action to help, Sunday I go and help in the nursing home, or with children, or with the poor, or bring material thing. If you are doing this with a little bit of expectation, that is a posture of illusions. Because it's something that is driven not by the self yet. It's still driven by either our shadows, our persona, or by our ego. Daniel, should I not do that? No, that's what not we are saying here. We should continue doing that. And Joanna is going to explain why, that by doing this, even if it is this, ego tricks or posture of illusion, that we think that we may deceive the society or other peoples, but we're not going to deceive our conscience later when we face God's law, the divine law. So by doing this self-discovery, we will eventually start to observe this, what we call the moral transformation or the inner transformation. What this means, the inner, the moral transformation? Well, is what the definition of a good spiritist or good Christian is mentioned in the Gospel according to Spiritism, where Kardec says that the good Christian, the good Spiritism is the same, but it's those that, strive to control, to dominate the evil tendencies that we have, right? And to become a better person today compared to what we were yesterday, or to become a better person tomorrow if we compare how we are behaving here today, right? So one of the things that also is very important for us to learn, and Joanna, this is a suggestion of Joanna, is to be fully aware with what we are doing. And this is not something that comes overnight as well. When we say awakening of our consciousness, I mean, the word awakening here is not because we are sleeping, but is a metaphorical way to say that, we need to be fully aware of our thoughts, our actions, and why we are doing things. Even though if sometimes the action that we are giving, there is some little expectation, or we are wait for some reward. I have to do this because when I die, I want it to be in a better place. So we are already kind of doing something not from the deep of your sentiment, of your feeling. You're creating expectation. Okay? So in one of the things that we can work on that, and that's Joanna de Angelis' approach, is that we need to go through experience, right? And she said, experience will provide us with the self-discovery. If we just decide to stay home, or go to the middle of the forest or the top of a mountain and meditate for a year without contact with anyone because you are looking for self-discovery, that's what's not the proposal here. Those exercise is good, but needs to be temporary to reset the mind, to help you to move on. But the true awakening will occur when you acquire experience, when we generate events, when we become in contact with other people. Okay? And that's what Jesus did. Jesus didn't stay inside of the synagogue. He went to the middle of the crowd. Why? Because those experience, and which kind of experience? For example, looking at other people and see how they deal with life. And most of all, help those people, through their pain or suffering in whatever situation. And I just put the word charity over there. There is no charity in the text. That will help you. You will give experience to kind of put yourself in a time, the time of your awakening. And then you can measure, well, by looking this person suffering, by see that this is something that I don't want it to be in that place. I empathize, not sympathize with that person. So let us do, but with the heart full of good feelings, without any expectation. So that will somehow generate what true charity means. Okay? It's not the charity yet what was defined by Paul, because that one we're going to see later what we need to do to achieve that. But the process of helping one another, go over there and ease someone's suffering, even give material things, is mechanism, is experience that will touching your sentiment, your feeling, and we hope that this experience will make you achieve the true means of charity later, because up to now is not charity by definition. It's just maybe you're just being, helping a social, be a social assistant, be a philanthropist at some time, even if you're not giving material thing, but you're giving your time. So, but it's not yet charity. Okay, so by doing all this, we'll think more about our life, as I have mentioned, and in this process of awareness that will generate the transformation within ourselves. So it's a mechanism that go step by step. It's slow. Everything is happening at the same time. It's like as we learn in the book Evolution Toward, by repetition, that one day we will achieve that awakening, of our consciousness. It's like doing good over and over, no matter what, but what's right to do, the right thing to do, you should be done. So in this book that I believe is not in English yet, entitled Moments of Consciência, probably Moment of Awareness, if we have to translate it, Joanna de Angelis, she brings a better understanding about what this awakening means of our consciousness. And she says, this awareness is not of the intellectual nature, nor activities of brain mechanism. It is the driving force that comes from within us. It is conquered from the evolutionary experience to externalize in the form of action. So first she said, look, this is not a brain mechanism. This is not something that is generating our brain, in our current life. Okay, what we do nowadays will help us in the future life. We will define our future, what we do today. But the way our behave, the way we do things today, if we are expecting a reward, if we are doing this because we want to just show that we are a good person, that is already a product of our evolutionary experience. So the way we act today is the result of how we were constructing those behave, either in this lifetime, the way we are raised, the culture we are lived, right now, how the society we are in bed. So, and also our past life playing a role here, right? So it is that if at the end of the day, we still like, okay, I have to do this because if I don't do this, I'm not going to be saved. So we are already like expecting a reward. It's not yet the true meaning of charity, according to what Joanna and Paul has defined to us. But I don't want it to discourage you. You don't need to stop to do this, because as she said, this will generate experience that will help to transform ourselves, right? So right now, we want to go toward God. So if we put a graph here, like Y and X, so the way we can go to God now is go through the X, is go toward the neighborhood. By doing this, we'll become close to God in the true sense of this explanation here. So she continues to say, consciousness can be trained through the exercise of high moral values, which aims at the good in others and consequently the good in ourselves. Wow, now she said something very interesting here. So when we see someone like Madre Teresa de Calcutta, Chico Xavier, DIVALDO, FRANCO, they are not like chose by God, they are preferred by God. No, they conquered that. They were trained to help others in the true meaning of charity. Like there is that case that the reporter came to Mother Teresa and they asked her, why you are doing this work? Why are you helping the poor? What you gain with that? And she just turned and answered the report, well, I do this because it's the right thing to do it. I don't know how to answer this to you. Why? Because she was doing out of her deep feelings, sentiment, to be in compliance of the divine law that go beyond what many of us is still doing nowadays, waiting for some kind of recognition, some kind of, feel good, I'm help someone, so, uh, and make you feel good. So it's a deep reflection here that we all need to do. This is a personal, I would say, journey that we all have to reflect upon, so we can really meet the expectation of to do charity according to the true meaning of the word charity. Okay, so in the book Plenitude, and this was discussed before by Leo, the chapter 6, there is a chapter called Altruism, and talking about the charity, the moral charity, the charity understood by Joanna de Angelis, by the great mind of humanity, by Jesus, by Paul. We cannot go there without altruism. And altruism is the practice of disinterest. This was not me, so I just copied this from the definition of the dictionary. So it's the practice of disinterested and selfless concern for other well-beings, for the well-being of others. Okay, so in this chapter, in the first 3 paragraphs, and I would like to read, and I know that Leo has already mentioned when he studied this book about 2 years ago. So it's good for us to revisit what Joanna de Angelis mentioned about altruism. And she says, altruism is a living lesson in charity. Is a living lesson in charity. So according to charity definition, we need to be altruist. We need to have this selfless concern for the well-being of others at first place. It is a precedent to be a charitable person according to what she's defined here. And she continues, a higher expression of a noble love that opens the door to action without which would be pointless. She continues, altruism is the very love taught by Jesus himself, the kind of practice selfless to focus on the welfare of others, forgetting all wrongs in order to expand by means of aspirations related to progress, order, and happiness. So she already say, like, if you really wanted to understand charity, altruism, look at Jesus. And he lived that. So that's our modern guide, right? And she finalized the third paragraph by saying, the antithesis of selfishness, it's heal the wounds of the soul caused by it and foster comprehensive health. The antithesis, like the opposite of selfishness, will heal the wounds of souls caused by it and foster comprehensive health. So they're saying that even our health, you may ask, my Daniel, how come like a person like Chico Xavier or some of even Mother Teresa, their health was deteriorated. Their health was not, they are not like, they all have some disease. Well, we are talking here about not the health of the body. Let's make this very clear. We are talking here about the health of the soul. So everything we do, we should aim the health of the soul, because the body is matter. Matter is under the rules of time, which means that will deteriorate sooner or later, right? We don't even need to expand on this analysis. So we cannot talk about charity without mention our Master Jesus and the moral laws, right? The third part of the Spirit's book, entitled The Moral Laws, we find the 10 moral laws over there, and the last one is the law of justice, love, and charity. And in the Spirit's book, question 886, Kardec asks, what is the true meaning of the word charity as Jesus understood it? Here, in the question itself, we already clarify Kardec that Kardec is asking the noble spirit, because Jesus, the answer was not given by Jesus. The noble spirit that really know more than us, because they are a little bit ahead than us, they have access more clear about the ins and outs about the life of Jesus, because many of the teaching we are still struggling to understand, right? And they answer to Kardec like this: benevolence toward everyone, indulgence toward the imperfection of others, and forgiveness of offense. These three words: benevolence, indulgence, forgiveness. So up to now, no one has mentioned charity as giving things, even giving our time. Nobody is mentioned here. So let's make this very clear, because it's very clear for us that salvation is not a condition that someone will have because they gave a lot of money to build hospital, to build. No, it's not that. This can be a means to help to achieve the true salvation, right? It's not even like go and volunteer in the sense that we are studying. It's very important for us to understand this. Okay, we are not saying that doing those is not going to help, but we should not create an expectation that by doing volunteer work we'll guarantee our salvation. It's very important for you to put on this context, right? So benevolence, indulgence, forgiveness. So we don't need to go deep on these three words, because benevolence means, be able to speak, good about people all the time, and we have not yet achieved that level. We can speak good about our friends, the people that we like, but become very difficult to see the good in others, especially those that has been hurted us, right? Indulgence, see the other side, exercise to, we all have flaws, we all have, suffering, we all have negative things, but to be indulgent, to see the positive side of someone, even the positive side of criminals, is very difficult for us, right? And imagine forgiveness. Someone hurt us so badly, or hurt someone from our family. So how are we going to achieve that? Well, this is not me saying. This is what the proposed, what these great minds has posed to us. So that is our goal to achieve. And so we like to use this acronym, BIF, B-I-F, right? So BIF, if you forget, so BIF, benevolence, indulgence, forgiveness. And, as people always complain when they feel sick, they want to have a remedy. So we have a charity molecule, with three ingredients, right? So we have an ingredient that we call benevolence, another ingredient that we call indulgence, and another one that we call forgiveness. If we take this pill when we feel morally drained or sick, that's why in Spirit Center, folks, when we, especially when we do fraternal assistance, when we talk to friends. One of the things that we always say, we say, look, do, your gospel home, but also look for some charitable organization or some non-profit, or go to the hospital, volunteer. Why? Because that's the beginning. We start with those action little by little, then we're not going to be able to exercise all the ingredient that the molecule of charity has, but at least one day we are benevolent with someone, and the other day we fail, we are not benevolent, but the other day we are indulgent, and sometimes we even forgive in a small level of forgiveness. The true forgiveness is much harder to do, right? um, Little offenses. We forgive little offenses. The big one, we still struggling for that. So then this is the charity molecule that we just created here. Okay? So let me see how many. Okay, we almost done with our presentation. We have a couple of slides to go. In this book, that's not in English yet, Diretrizes para o Êxito, psychographed by DIVALDO Franco, by the Spirit Joanna de Angelis. I think, we just put over there, which means in English, guidelines for success, something like that. In the chapter 3, Joanna de Angelis mentioned something very interesting in regards to this, what means benevolence. She said, however, the Spirit Joanna de Angelis defined benevolence as a feeling, and I translate this, these are free translations, so a feeling or sentiment of deep love to your neighborhood and of understanding of his or her action. So what is the highlight here? For me, the highlight is this deep love, okay? We understand that feeling, sentiment, sentiment is more related with our, our soul, is what comes from our soul. Feelings is something that's related to our emotion, is the product of what our brain, process. We have like a feeling, we didn't feel good because we have an emotion that triggers some reaction in our body. But sentiment is processed in the soul, in the spirit. So it's a more refined and true, I would say, aspect of feeling, okay? So, but she's saying here that is the deep love. Benevolence, the deep love. So she's putting the bar here very high, okay? Because depending of the offenses that we went through, to develop this deep love will require time. Why, Daniel? Because we are not pure spirit yet. We are not pure spirit yet, right? Only Jesus was able to do that. He was betrayed, and he was crucified, and then he went and rescued his betrayer. We learned this in the book, Good News. That's not in English. It's going to be in English soon, we hope. So we have been waiting for this book to be published in English. In Portuguese, the title is Boa Nova, by the Spirit Humberto de Campos, through the mediumship of Chico Xavier. So we know that he rescued us. So only Jesus was yet capable. Of course, in the history, we may have some 1 or 2 people that has been also able to display this deep love, in the sense, not to go over there and, has the same kind of love, but the deep love of forgiveness, of benevolence, the feeling of benevolence and indulgence, the true meaning of charity, right? So this for us for analysis. Also, this is the chapter 17, it's not 15, I believe. Okay, so this is a communication from the Spirit, Sister Rosaria, and I brought this passage before here, one of our talk, I think, last year, and I wanted to remind us again about what she says in this communication. And she said, is entitled Moral Charity. She says, moral charity consists in giving support to one another. And it is what you means us practice the least. And then she continued by saying, believe me, there is a great merit in knowing how to keep quiet and let a more ignorant person speak. This is yet another kind of charity. And we highlight over there just to emphasize what she's advising us regards to moral charity. She continued by saying, knowing how to turn a deaf ear when a mocking word escapes the mouth accustomed to its scorn, not pay attention to a smear of disdain that greets your entries amongst persons who often wrongly think they are above you, whereas in the spirit life, the only true life, they are sometimes far from it. These are meritorious acts, not of humility, but of charity. Because not pay attention to someone else wrongs portrays moral charity. Very deep, but also very difficult, isn't it, to put in practice? How many times we, just by knowing that someone has bad mouth us, how our feelings, our reaction, our emotion was turned on, and our desire to go and confront that person. And we all have begun to those situations, and we're gonna go face the same situation. But here she's already telling us how we should act. We should just, silence. And she's saying this based in whom? In the modern guy, Jesus. We never learned that Jesus, with all the power that he as a pure spirit had, could, easily, go against those that prosecute him and tell all the truth, and even create situation not to have that prosecution happen, right? But he didn't do nothing. Although he knew that he did nothing wrong. He didn't kill anyone. He didn't badmouth anyone. Jesus, we never learned that Jesus went and gossip against, other people. He didn't commit any violation in the law. The only thing he did was charity. The true meaning of charity, right? He didn't humiliate anyone. He was perfect spirit. He could say, you know who I am? I am the governor of this planet. I helped to build this planet at 4.5 or 5 billion years ago. I helped to create you through the process of evolution. He did nothing. So that's why the Sister Rosario here is advising us that if when we are in those situations, we need to access the level of that other person. If that person doesn't meet our level, let's not waste our time. Let's silence, right? Very easy to say, to put the bar very high, but that is the recommendation here. That's not my recommendation. We are all here studying together, right? So to finalize, I would like to go back to the chapter, without charity, there is no salvation. What this truly means is the base of all Jesus' teaching, Jesus' moral teaching, that pretty much resuming these two words, charity and humility, which is the opposite of selfishness and pride. So the opposite of humility is pride. And charity, in this case, would be selfishness. That's the negative side of these two virtues that we have discussed today. To finalize, I would like to leave you with this paragraph from the book, The Conscious Beings by Joanna de Angelis. And in the first chapter, in fact, is the introduction, the first chapter, at the end of the first page, she mentioned like this: conscious individuals are austere, but not gloomy, cheerful, but not flippant, benevolent, but not consenting to error, benevolent, but not consenting to error. They assist and empower those in need and then go on their way without expecting anything in return. That is the true meaning of the conscious individual. That is true meaning of the word charity. So there is no expectation. We are here to empower ourselves, but in the moment that we empower ourselves, we also empower others. And we don't expect anything. We just continue moving in our journey. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be between you or between me and God. It's not between you and the other one that hurt you. It's not about that. So I think this is a summary. Of course, there is many other teachings here in Spiritism, and also with other great minds of humanity. Of course, especially Carl Gustav Jung, that has devote his life to study and to bring the mechanism of our psychic, of our conscience. But Joanna de Angelis comes here beautiful and connect with the Spiritist teaching, bring also inviting ourselves to rethink about our actions and what we are doing. And at the end of the day, we should ask, did I do things good today? Or, I'm a charitable person. And if we are not met or meeting those conditions that we have learned here, especially like the one that was addressed by Jesus, not Jesus himself, but the Spirit answer how Jesus understood charitable, benevolence, indulgence, and forgiveness, we are still a little bit far from that. But let us not be discouraged. That the idea is for us to reflect upon this, and as we move on in our life, in our evolution, we are learning with one another, we are helping one another, and waiting for one day our salvations be the consequences of the good deeds that we have done when we are here as immortal spirit. I wanted to stop here. I will stop my slide. I will bring Kirsten back, and let's see what we have here with question and answers, question and comments.
Wonderful. That was wonderful, Daniel. Thank you so much for that. So yeah, so let's go to we got quite a bit of questions and comments, and just wanted to share that there are some people just saying hello as well. Alba Morales saying hello. It looks like another Spiritist Center, Casa Camino Dular, saying hello. Hello, dear friends. Leila Mendez, Alonso, hello, hello. It's always so good to see new friends pop in and old friends as well. So we can go to one of our first questions. I believe it was from Yasko. I believe so. Yes. Okay. So she says, we often think of salvation of suffering at the moment of death or afterlife, but salvation can be relief from our physical or mental pains that we are enduring now, right?
Yes, yes. Depends. Yeah, depends of the word salvation. We are not to bring in context, okay? But the salvation that we are pretty much discussing, that is discussed in the gospel, is the true salvation. That salvation that we're gonna, after we cross this lifetime, we're gonna be in heaven. Okay, that was the idea. So, but in Spiritism, we see that the salvation is the pain that will not, is the the peace of mind, I would say that the spirit will find him or herself after move on to the other side. But in that context, of course, I mean, like, the pain of the physical pain, in this case, we know physical pain is easy to mitigate nowadays, right? We have all the medicine that take care of that. We have pills, we have drugs that minimize the pain. The mental pain is the big deal here. And the mental pain is a product of our bad choices sometimes, right? Our decisions may trigger this mental pain. And we wanted to be saved from that, right? We wanted to uh, pretty much not go into that feeling, that suffering. But here's the thing that we should not forget. The same way that we has consequence in our physical body because we mistreat our physical body, when we deviate from the divine laws, is the same mechanism. So the difference that when we deviate from the divine laws, and we are saying here, when we act and we cause harm to others, we violate the divine law by kill someone, by mistreat, by oppress, by put in a situation that is not acceptable, because we are brother and sister. Nobody is above the law, the divine law, even the human law. We use a lot that terminology in the human law as well. So you're gonna face the divine laws, and that will cause what we call mental pain. That's the moral pain, right? You steal from the society, and then we're gonna find ourselves in a really mental pain. There is a beautiful case in the book Torment of Obsession, the chapter 21, entitled A Unique Experience, where they tell the story of DIVALDO, Torment of Obsession. Read that chapter, talking about someone that was prepared before to come to reincarnate in a spiritist family, even to be very active at the center, but active in the society. But as soon as he was feel himself in the society and drawn to the political arena, he could not resist the temptation of the political and the material gain. And when he discarnated, he spent 10 years in the lower zone, 10 years suffering, until he was rescued and brought to the hospital Esperanza, that was the hospital created in the lower zone to rescue Spiritist spirit. Okay, that is very serious business here. And he was immersed in this cocoon, because of the guilt feeling that we call here, Yasko, the mental pain. That depends how much, and this is related to the degree of understanding that the person has. If we already know about, the laws of the divine laws, and if we still go against those laws, the mental pain because of the guilt we're gonna face will be tremendous. This is about I kind of agree with that when you ask, endure now, current right. The right, yes, but we need always to put in the context of what we are mentioning here, right? Thank you for the question, yes.
Sorry about that. So thank you so much for that, Daniel, and thanks for your question, Yasko. Also, we just had Flavio Zanetti. He popped in just to share golden rule equals execution of divine laws. Beautiful. We did have a question that came to us that we posed and it was, how can we practice charity if we ourselves feel like we need it ourselves?
So how can we press charity? Well, it's the process is not like, okay, first we need to go and help. No, so we are together in this swimming pool, right? So we are in a swimming pool, means we are incarnating this planet. So, if we feel that we are in the corner of the pool and suddenly someone is making a wave on the other side, we will affect us, even if we are like, in a good way or in the bad way. So, but here's the thing. There is a saying that, we always need to check first in ourselves in order to help others. Is that story that we learn when they're inside of the airplane, If in the case of turbulence, put your mask first and then go and help the one close to you, you know? I hope I will never have to go to that experience, but I'm pretty sure a lot of people has been going to that experience. So you need to check ourselves. That's why we brought Joanna de Angelis to this talk. Because Joanna de Angelis is always say, look to yourself first, analyze your flaws, but don't stay home. Go and meet other people. Create experience. By doing this, you also gonna help yourself. Even if you are like, oh my goodness, I cannot help. Well, maybe if you are unable to walk, true, you cannot go to, a volunteer work, but you can give a call to someone. You can, write letters. You can meet good thoughts, and you don't even know to know the person. For example, you are watching television, okay? You are watching the news, and they are not talking about Republican Democrats. So if you are one of the party, try to exercise to send good thought to the opposite party. It's a charitable way to do it. So you don't need to, it is, the charity is not in the field of giving things. Volunteer, give your time, is in the field of the mind. It's how you're processing your thoughts. So we need to start to think about that first, because the action is ultimately the consequence of our thought. So I don't see excuse not to help. If you are giving excuse, I cannot help because, I'm the one in need. Yeah, we may be in need at some level, but there is other area that you can assist. I hope I kind of like help.
Sorry, I keep myself on mute. No, that was great. I think that was perfect. At least I think it was. So we have our next question coming from Kirsten. I've always wondered if charity is practiced in the animal kingdom, and is this sense of charity a more refined behavior that has evolved within human mind over time?
Yeah, good question, Kissing. So the animal kingdom, the animal kingdom behave by instinct, okay? So we should not expect, this kind of charity that we are discussing here in the animal kingdom, because they are not yet in the level to do what we are doing, but they follow, the instinct that they are embedded in the divine laws that controls all the mechanisms that goes from the biological mechanism, through the events of nature, okay? And they follow that through the instinct. So because animal is not required yet, is not yet the individualized spirit, is not able to make rational choice, or they don't have the yet acquired the intelligence. They have intelligence, but it's fragmented. But they don't have yet the reason. They still don't comprehend the level of comprehension of the animal kingdom. Why the zebra is that? Why I have to go this way or that way? They are all moved by instinct, by biological instinct. So they are doing everything according to the natural and divine laws. So this example here is not applicable yet to those beings yet. Okay, they need to be, this is more for the individualized spirits. And that's why we don't see cause in nature, in the sense that we don't see one kingdom, for example. The population of birds decide to fight against the fish, or the dogs, although dogs and cats fight, but it's something that is under the control of the natural laws, okay? So, and if they go and use the other species as lunch or dinner, is expecting that level of their evolution, okay? The same way we still kill animals to, to survive, but that as we move on, that will not going to be an option anymore.
And then we have Yasko, she shares her comment, I think in regards to the question. And she says, I think so. We see many cute videos of kindness of animals, helping others, or giving way to others to enjoy food, freedom, or play.
Correct.
So maybe, Daniel, maybe it's not charity. Maybe there's a rudimentary love that's there, very, very, like, it's like instinctual, right? To most of the time, maybe we're seeing a lot of this, at least in the wild, where animals are loving towards their offspring, loving in a very rudimentary way. So maybe in some very rustic way, it's true.
Correct. Yes, I agree with you. That is a, as you said, rudimentary love and rudimentary form of charity. Yes.
So then we have just a couple other comments. We have some from Cristiano Silva, and he says the awakening process is like a long road. We will all achieve the end of this road, some of us in a faster way, others not that much. And then he also shares, as is stated in the Spirit's book, we all will achieve perfection little by little. I think he was commenting on what you were talking about at that time. Little by little, changing ourselves into a better spirit. Absolutely. Thanks so much for your comment, Cristiano. And then we have Paula sharing some comments and a question. She said, and I think they're linked together. She says, so charity is done with no expectation of a thank you, and gratitude becomes a daily practice to deepen our awareness of everyday goodness. Do you think, and that's the next question, yeah. Do you think the charity of our thoughts will be the primary practice?
Yes, absolutely, Paula. Yes, everything is starting our thought. Okay, so the actions and the behavior and the outcomes, will be the product of, the initial thought that we have. So at this point, the thought is the start point of, all our action. I think, as you mentioned, domesticate and learn, control, analyze before any action is the key. And that would be a charitable approach, we are still far away of the true definition of charity, according to Paul.
Perfect. Then we also had just some more comments. We had Vlad. Hey, thanks for joining us, Vlad. He said, good job, Daniel. Thank you. Just other people sharing their comments as well. And then we do have some other questions. So we have Layla Mendez Alonso. She says, why is it still so hard to be natural givers, or to be a natural giver?
Okay, can I answer this with, for example, using sport, okay? I grew up playing soccer, okay? If someone, and I will try to do that. For example, if someone invited me to go to play basketball and put the ball in the basket, I would say it's going to be very hard to do it. What's the difference between me, that never played basketball, to those that grow up playing basketball, and vice versa? Repetition. repetition, how many times we volunteer, how many times we help one another. So we start with this since we are little young, you know. So when, for example, you know, if you have a toddler at home, we have one here. So, and we need to teach them, or him or her, to share little things and then imitate. And also the parent needs to do it so they can imitate. Repetition, repetition, repetition. So if it's hard for you to do something, it's because you have not repeated that action many times yet. Not in this lifetime and not in other lifetimes. Because we see people, for example, I will give an example in the arts, for example. We see like little kids, like, I don't know, 10 years old, can play piano very well, like professional. And they didn't repeat too much in this lifetime because they, you know, still very young. But they play as they are like a master in piano, for example. Where did this come from? Maybe past lifetime, repetition. He was a great musician in several lifetimes. So to answer your question and to answer also our, you know, difficulty as well, because we all have some difficulty in areas of life. If we find ourselves that, you know, it's hard for me to, you know, do those kind of charity. I mean, look for something that we already, but that's the challenge. The hard one is the challenge for us to go and force ourselves. But also we need to do this first by using Joanna's approach. We need to also, as we force ourselves to help, we also need to do in the same time this self-evaluation. We need to, as she mentioned, like the inner discovery. Why this is so hard to do, my goodness? Why I don't like to do that? Why I don't like to clean the house, for example? I'll give something very, you know, easy, like, why don't I like to wash the dishes? Why I don't like to, I mean, little things. Where this come from? Okay, maybe, you know, you have a feeling that in past life we have people that did this for you, and now you have to do by yourself. So it becomes something hard to get through that, you know. But you should not discourage. We should not feel dismotivated. You know, we should acknowledge that it's hard for us to do it. And I like your question because your question is very true, and we all relate to that. There is things that is hard, but not impossible. So we should keep doing.
Thank you, Daniel. And then Abby gives a comment. I think she was responding to the question earlier. She says, for me, if I'm feeling like I need charity, when I help someone else, I feel better. So that's great too. And Daniel, I don't mean to throw a curveball at you, but someone had asked me this question many years ago, and I still don't know if I ever answered their question correctly, but I'm going to pose it to you. So this person had asked me, what do they do? Because when they go out to practice charity, when they went to, let's say, for example, this person went to volunteer at a soup kitchen, or the children's ward where there were, really sick little children, and this person ended up feeling really bad when they left. So they didn't want to practice charity in that respect. So, you know, what do you do with that when you feel that kind of feeling?
That's really a curveball, you know. So baseball. Okay, so it's very complex. Okay, first of all, we are complex being. Let's start from that, you know, and every feeling we have at first is our duty, our job to figure out. Because it's very easy for us to attribute the feeling to the trigger. And the environment can be the trigger, right? But if I was triggered by the environment, or, you know, a child, so that's what Joanna asked us to do it. You know, so let us dive in and say, why I'm feel this? You know, if this happened just one time, but if this become a pattern, then it's something that needs to be looked at very closely. Could be a psychological issues that, you know, someone may have, and that's why we have psychologists, isn't it? That's why we have all these you know, professionals that can help us how to figure out on that, you know. But that is good. If we are going to do a thing and then you have that feeling, there is we can have many explanations for that. Could be that the person is very sensitive to a degree that they can absorb the energy field of the environment. Then we're gonna discuss about other area that is, you know, this sixth sense, mediumship, for example. The person is sensitive, the person absorbs that. So then we need to, you know, look at this carefully and see how can we protect ourselves. Because one thing for sure that I think is not the goal here is that with our limitation that we have, we use as excuse not to help others, because we easily can do that. Or I'm not going to do this because every time I go to help someone, I feel bad. I have this thing. But then you need to find out, the person needs to find out. And here, I don't want to judge or to bring a solution because, as I said, this is complex things that happens. Could be related for trauma, past life, could be, but we are not here in position to make that determination yet, because we need to observe those feelings. But at the end of the day, there is room for us to help at some capacity, you know. If it is something that, okay, if I go to the place because my sensitivity, because, you know, I have a stance of mediumship and I go and I cannot control that, then let's find a way to learn how to control that. Let's do a training. Let's join a spirit center and get a training and know how to control that emotion. If it is unbearable, then you need to find another way to be useful. One thing that we cannot do is just like, don't do nothing, because then we are in a danger zone if we don't do nothing. So it's the little that I can elaborate on that. I validate that some people has those experience, but it should not be a reason for not help. Okay, so if you go to a spirit center, maybe talk to someone at the spirit center, find a way to, you know, I don't know, do therapy sometime can help to find out why these things happen. Sometimes maybe the problem is not the external, maybe it's inside of the person, right?
We didn't. I'm so sorry. Last question. Okay. In our in this in our stage that we are here, we tend to think by doing charity diligently, even with some sacrifices, we are doing okay towards our salvation. But Paul to Corinthians about the need of love in our action of charity, and Joanna about the need of our moral transformation, indicates otherwise. But don't you think doing charity, even with some second agenda, may awaken on us sooner or later the true charity? Mm.
Yes, and I guess that's what I mentioned when I was bringing this two approach by Paul and by Joanna. And Joanna was very clear on that, because when Paul brought the idea of, you know, even if I have all those qualities, but without charity, he didn't went to this specifically, you know. But Joanna, she did that. You know, if you read her psychological series, and she always brings to this awakening of our consciousness. And that is the true charity, you know, is and she also mentioned that by doing this, we need to go toward others. I mean, like, how can we perfect ourselves if we don't do this thing that is not charity, but will lead us to be a charitable person in the real meaning of the word charity, as defined by Paul? So we need to go. So let us not stop. And they ask you, you're completely right on that. Let's not stop to do our little things, because one day for us to be doing great, um, acco- uh, um, accomplishment in the creation, we need first to learn how to do little things. Even if we have the second agenda, you know, it's very important that we know that we have the second agenda, that this charity that I'm doing is the work of my ego, is the second agenda. Is the persona, is that we show that face, we are doing charity, so we are here, we are post picture that we are doing charity, so because we want other people to see it, that's vanity. That's not even charity, you know, because it's different. It's not pride. Pride is when we think that we are better than everyone, and we don't care if people see or not. We feel that we are better. Vanity is something completely different. It's like, look how good I am. I'm donate like $10,000, and I want my name to be in this. Okay, there is a second agenda. This is more vanity than charity in the work, in the true means of the word charity. Daniel, but this is gonna help a hospital. This is gonna help. Yeah, that's fine. It's gonna help. There is a percentage over there, a very small percentage that's gonna count, because your action was moved by, a recognition by others. So to finalize um, my reflection, that I'm not saying that's the right one, okay, forgive me, because everyone is entitled to do their own reflection. Let's look at the parable of um, the woman that gave the coin. I forgot now.
The woman at the well?
No, that the when she gave just a little coin, that she always is gonna. So that is the Pharisee that gave a lot of money, and
the
then
widow's mite.
they would widow's mite. The parable of the widow's mite. So that one reflect what we are discussing here. Okay, so because what the widow did was something that what she will lack, because she was giving everything that she had, when the other one was giving just like what was, superfluous for him, it was not was not necessity for him. It's just to show up, So we need to also pay attention to those acts, how we are doing stuff. And I think Yasko can help, but depends how is the feeling, the sentiment we are putting that action. Okay, if that action is really a true action, there is a little second agenda, but don't expect that on the other side you're going to be received by Jesus or Bezerra de Menezes or the great minds. Don't expect that, for sure. Why I say that? How do you know that, Daniel? Well, just let's read. What the spirits literature has brought us. Especially in the series of André Luiz series and Manuel Filomeno de Miranda as well. So I guess time is over. So let me just finalize here, Kiss, and say thank you, everyone. It was very good to reflect and to discuss this topic of charity. I have learned a little bit more, and I hope you also. I mean, of course, the chapter 15 of the Gospel according to Spiritism, entitled "Without Charity, There Is No Salvation." The final message of that chapter was given by Saint Paul himself. Can you believe? So the chapter is a beautiful message. The charity according Paul, and the title is "Without Charity, There Is No Salvation." I guess he wrote the letters to the Corinthians, and now he comes as a spirit and conclude by, the chapter with his message that expand a little bit the understanding of the true charity, love, and action. I guess we can go to our final prayer. I'll be delighted to do the final prayer. Let us, everybody, let me just put image here so we can all concentrate as we finalize our meeting today. Thank you, dear Lord. Thank you, lovely spirits, the spirits that oversee the Spiritist Society of Baltimore. for this moment of reflection. We ask that you can help us to strengthen our actions and help others, as well in help ourselves to figure out our limitations and overcome them. Bless all those that are here with us in this virtual meeting. May all the good spirit fluids can be penetrating each house, each place of each one, everyone that are listening this reflection, as well for those that will watching the recorded version. We are very grateful for this opportunity to be able to reflect and understand this teaching brought to us for many minds throughout humanity. With the guided protection permission, we close our meeting of tonight, and so be it.